Coming up today on the new Hope Regeneration podcast.
Grew up in Rio de Janeiro. Gracie is a huge family. And Carly Gracie used to be like, in our house all the time.
So you do the therapy, and did you have to have surgery?
No, the predictions that I got my knee hurt in September. I think I went in November. In January, I was competing at the Europeans, and I won the Europeans.
Obrigado, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us today. How's your day going so far?
Doing great, man. Another beautiful day here in Colorado. Can't complain. We're in the mid-60s, sunny outside. It's fun.
Spring, 60s in Colorado. What a blessing, right?
Can't complain.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, guys, I am so honored to have Professor Rodrigo Antunes on the New Hope Regeneration podcast. His background in Jiu Jitsu is phenomenal. His story is great, but more importantly, he's an amazing human being. I got some time to spend with him at the PANs. Got to watch you firsthand compete. We'll get to that. So before we get to that amazing performance, please tell the audience, how did you start Jiu-Jitsu? What got you into it, and what was your background?
First, thanks so much for the opportunity to be talking here about my journey. I always like to kind of, share a little bit of things that we do, maybe like, other people maybe you feel inspired and, or even start Jiu-Jitsu or continue Jiu-Jitsu, after late 40s and keep going. So that's the whole idea. Yeah, I feel great. Yeah, man, there was a funny story. Like I grew up in in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, right? The birth of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, when everything started, right? I was born in the late mid 70s. So when I was like 4 years old, I started judo. So because back in Brazil, boys intend do swimming, soccer, and judo, right? So that's all the boys as the first sports is going to be the first one in this in the childhood, and girls more like swimming, ballet. So that was the culture back in Brazil. So it's not really.
So not jiu-jitsu back then.
Jiu-jitsu is just for kids, for adults. I'm sorry, right?
Wow. Okay.
So it was like very fighting oriented system, right? Even though self-defense, but there's like punches, elbows, kicks, and I don't think they have at the time the methodology to teach kids properly. So they used to teach kids as mini adults, right? And I grew up in Rio de Janeiro. Gracie is a huge family, and Carly Gracie used to be like in our house all the time, because my cousin, and her and him used to kind of hang out together. So Carly was all the time in the house. My parents had a house in the mountains in Teresópolis, where the Gracie has the huge house there. So I remember it was a young kid at 5 years old, 6 years old, Carson and Carly would come to my house, and my dad was kind of like, "What's going on with your hands?" Because they used to have the Gracie diet, eat a lot of papaya, so their hands, orange, kind of different color. And my dad was an endocrinologist at the time, and he's very curious about the Gracie diet and and the philosophy behind it. So I remember they talking hours in the backyards about the philosophy behind it. Carly was very is still a good friend of our family until these days. So then they said, "Oh, you got to take this kid to jiu-jitsu." So well, he tried judo for 2 years. He kind of didn't like it, and one day my dad said, "You know what? Just tell me where should I bring him." And there was like a jiu-jitsu school called Hilson Gracie, very close to my house, about 5 minutes. So it was in Gavia.
So it made it easy to go train.
Oh, it was easy, and he has a system for kids. So I remember back in the day, we have private classes. I remember it's just myself or another kid in my age, and I remember they have the 32 or 36 classes on the wall. So once you master that, you move in the belts, right? So I remember I have a card. It was very very nice organized. That's when people say, "Oh, I do methodology here." Well, those guys are doing methodology in the on the 50s.
They were the trailblazers, right? They brought it out and figured it out, trial and error.
Yeah, people said I invent this methodology. No, man, they create it. We modify it. The sport evolved and we modify it like everything else. In our lives, right? So remember that I came with my school uniform. School means because you have uniform for I was in elementary school at the time, right? So they give me a basket and I have my gi, my card, and a towel, so I could shower there, right? So there was an entrance. We went to the changing room, and then I put my stuff in there. I put in, bring the basket back, take my class, come back, get changed, and return my basket, right? So there was a system that they have. They wash your gis and everything. So
cool.
I did about for 2 years, I would say about 2 years. And but again, there was not a lot of kids playing at the time. There's more like, private class or semi-private. So again, as a kid, and this is what I really believe, we need to try different sports, right? And I honestly, I lost the interest at the time, right? About 10 years old, I was not training as much. I was doing other things. I was playing, volleyball, basketball, because the physical education back in Brazil, they have a system that they follow, right? In sports. So they start first grade, they start
every grade, right?
Yeah, with a small ball, they call like futsal, right? And then on second grade, you start, handball with a small ball, right? And on the third grade, we start playing basketball, and the fourth grade, volleyball. So it's a progression based on your structure and the skills that you need to develop through the process throughout elementary school, right? So once I get more towards basketball and volleyball, that caught my attention. I love that, right?
Nice.
And become a team sport, right? So they have this kind of social ingredient as well that kind of, caught me there. So I kind of, and this is what I tell, even my students, with the very young ones, you should try other things as well, man. If you want to take a break, because it's important that as a kid you develop all the skills, right? So balance, coordination, and one hand, two hands, your foot, right? Swimming, right? Fencing, right? So,
I love what you just said, because jiu-jitsu is, I think, one of the only sports where someone like you, a high-level coach, is encouraging diversity, encouraging you care about the students' development, right? And that's what I love. It really illustrates in what you just said there, and it sounds like that's what you came up growing up in that environment, and you're passing that on, to your students. So, congrats, Professor. That's a big deal.
Well, that's really important that you develop skills like that. That's what I tell, when a kid sign up in our school. And this is what I tell, I'm going to teach you techniques, but I'm going to teach you life skills as well, right? So right now you have a lot of, balance exercise, mobility exercise, because we have to fulfill a gap, excuse me, you have to fulfill a gap that, this generation is missing, which is they don't climb trees anymore. They don't, ride bikes. They don't have scars anymore. Scars become a problem, right? So I remember, 8 months, I was 8 months, and then there was a bounce. I was, at the park, the bounce hit my head, and I have stitches here, right? At 8 months.
We have those stories. That's right. Our generation has that story, and it is a little different.
Yeah, I was at their school. I jumped on fence, and then I hit my shin. So I have 5 stitches here. 5 years old, 5 stitches here, right? I was riding my bike at 8 years old, and I fell the bike, and I have stitches on my elbow. But I have stitches all over the place. But that was a healthy childhood, right? Which now kids now, I remember, I was not like a video game guy, even though the video game starts for us when I was affordable. Atari was, mid 80s. I was like 10 years old.
Yep.
So I have to play, outside, and I love it, So that's what it is. So then I took this break, I would say about 2 years.
That's what I was say. How long? About 2 years,
yeah,
okay?
About 2 years. Because I remember about grading. Excuse me. So I remember I was finished middle school, and a friend of mine, I moved. I studied I was elementary, and most of my middle school was a boys only, 8 to 5, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. school. And then when I was on 8th grade, which is the last year of middle school, I moved to a co-ed school, right? So I met a bunch of friends there. And one guy, he kind of started inviting people to come and train with him. He wasn't from my classroom, but he was training jiu-jitsu. He was a yellow belt. I was a yellow at the time, and he was a yellow belt too. We are about, I would say, 12, 13 years old at the time. Okay. And he brought me to one of Castro and Gracie schools. Sergio Souza Bolão. He recently, spin off from Castro Gracie. He was the head coach at Castro Gracie. He opened his own school, like in Copacabana. I live in Leblon. He opened a school in Copacabana. So I was one of his first year. On the first year he opened a school, I was one of his students.
First, yeah.
Yeah, I was not his first student, but I was,
What?
within the first year of the school, right? And he has a lot of kids, and that was great because for me, this friend of mine, Moisés, he invited everyone, right? So invite everyone. So there was a time there was 10 of us. So imagine how fun was it, a bunch of kids, like eighth graders, play around, we spend the whole in that class, we go to school from 7 a.m. or 7:30 to noon or 12:30. It was like kind of, and then you go home, do homework, do activity at 5 o'clock. We hang out together for another 2 hours. That was great, right? So there was 10 of us.
Amazing.
So I wouldn't say that I can't say that I was in love with jiu-jitsu at the time. I was in love with the environment, right?
The culture, right? The friendship, the camaraderie, right? The experience, yes.
Totally. So that's why I'm very the technique, it's very important, right? You have to have a methodology. You have to be professional. Have to be on time. You have to kind of present yourself and teach the right way. But what keeps the students in our schools there is the culture that you build, right? The relationships that we build. If it's positive, it's healthy, right? So that's what people stick. Because not everyone fell in love with jiu-jitsu at first sight. Right?
Sure, it's not for everybody.
Right?
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes it takes time for you to understand. Imagine there an adult learn how to swim, how frustrated it is. And that's how jiu-jitsu is. The first 3 months of jiu-jitsu, it's kind of frustrating. That's have to pass the 3 months. Once you pass the line of the 3 months, then you understand what jiu-jitsu is about, and that's now you on the road to kind of at least get your blue belt, right?
And you're exactly right. And people say jiu-jitsu's for everybody. And I'm like, yes, I believe that. But in the beginning, that's what people leave, right? The first couple classes. So it is so important what you just said. If you have the right environment, they're going to want to come back. Even though it was hard, right? It's uncomfortable, but you're encouraging them. And like you said, your group of 10, you're all there's going to be days you don't want to go, but your buddy's going to say, come on, meet me at class. So it really sounds like your childhood laid a brick foundation, not only of methodology, technique, but the right culture, the right environment. And, so kudos. That sounds like that was the foundation. So fast forward now, how old were you when you came to the States?
So then I came to the States. Well, so there's a lot of history between that, right?
Please, yeah.
So I have an aunt who lives in DC at the time, and I used to spend my summer vacation, Brazilian summer vacation, with her in the U.S. Right?
Okay.
So I used to come after Christmas. Or New Year's, for 2 years, I came 3 times. The first 2, I came right after New Year's. The third time, that was during high school, I came right after Christmas, and I stayed until Carnival. So about,
nice.
I would say 9 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, pretty much, right? So that was about it. I remember because we had a course, this 4-week course. So I remember I did at least twice this course to learn English, to improve my English, because we have English school, but not, in deep and living and kind of breathing English. So that's kind of make you.
Were you training? So now, as you're coming to the U.S., were you training when you came for those weeks?
No, so that's the thing. We're trying to find a place to train. I was in this area. There was no DC. We have to find the yellow pages, right? And there was jiu-jitsu. And it was Japanese jiu-jitsu. And it was kind of weird. And I remember I was blue for 2 years. 2 years I was blue. The last year was already purple. And then I came with my belt. I was like, what's going on here?
Right. You're the highest rank.
What's going on here? Well, some guys are black belts, but kind of, those kind of old black belts with the Japanese. So I couldn't find an honest. The only thing I could find was a judo club. They run 2 times a week. Guy has a full-time job. He just do that for fun. Have a bunch of kids there. So I remember that I came 2 times a week. Then we came back home, of course, finished my studies, went to college. I have but I started teaching when I was 15 years old, right? I would start helping kids class, first tying kids belts, And then like, hey, can you do the warm up while I'm talking to this mom? Yes. The other day, hey, can you cover this class today? Can you show one technique? Because you do this pass really well. Can you show the kids there? After that, hey, I'm gonna be, I have a competition on this weekend. Can you cover my class? And at that time, I moved to another school because one friend of mine, he opened a school like literally across the street, like in the same block that I live. So I moved there. I was about 15 years old. So I moved to this school. So man, there were everyone, same thing. Everyone from my neighborhood would go there. We are still friends until today. We talk about this is 32 years later. We're still friends today. I was at PanAm's like cheering for, many of them. And it's funny because for our group, there was like 5 of us competing from that group. I talk about teenagers.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Everyone got podium. Got 3 champions, 1 silver and 1 bronze.
Nice.
We all still train. And it's funny. That group was very solid group at the time. Because we have like good masters that kind of really inspires, to train, right? So that was the first U.S. experience.
Nice.
Then I came again to San Diego. So then I spent a longer time, about 6 months. That was in college. So I do like my college has this kind of program called sandwich program or exchange program. Sorry. So I came once and I stayed 6 months in San Diego. So there was only actually 2 schools there at the time. There was 95. You have Nelson Monteiro, who taught the shake, but he moved. At the time, he was like, going to Dubai for the whole shake, situation, ADCC.
I remember.
Different that, you need a podcast just for that.
Just for that, yeah. Those times, yeah.
There was Fábio Santos, Rickson Grace Black Belt that was teaching down south. There's the only 2 schools in San Diego at the time. So I was a purple belt at the time, and I was training at this place, the Nelson Monteiro School, right? And the teacher was a purple belt as well. So there was not many. Imagine there's, you talk about San Diego, right? That's 30 years ago, 2 schools only.
2 schools, 2 purple belts, right, in the same room.
And 1 purple belt teaching the class. So how crazy the sport grows, right?
It grows, yes.
So in my last year of college, I took advantage of this program again, and I moved to Santa Barbara. So I was in a UCSB at the time. So I finished my college, my last courses, my last disciplines, my last I did in Santa Barbara, and then I met Franginha at the time. And I remember back in the day there was Jeff Glover was just got his blue belt. Bill Cooper was an orange belt. He was teaching there, but that was the time that I was there. He was promoting his first generation pole belt. So it was Tyrone Glover, Adam Beshia, and then right after Jeff, or Adan and Jeff at the same time, right? So that's when I realized, I said, I want to teach jiu-jitsu for my life. That's what I want to do for my life, right? So when I came back to Brazil, I did my final paper, right? I got my my bachelor's in business, and I said that's what I want to do for a living. I was still working a corporate job. I work in marketing. I worked for the Brazilian Olympic Committee for 7 years as well. But I started teaching, myself. I opened my own school in downtown, teach executives, right? So when I was about like early 30s, I felt like, man, my life is missing something, right? I enjoy a lot being on the mats, which I enjoy my job. Don't get me wrong. I never hate my job. But I enjoy more being on the mats, right? I think I could have a positive impact on people's life, through jiu-jitsu more than through a corporate career, right? So, and I said, so I told my wife, and I said, listen, I want to, give a try because, I'm still young, I like to give a try with that. And she was pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
So she said, let's do it.
Same. Literally the same story, Professor. I came home on a Friday, and I was 29 years old, 30 years old. My wife, we have 1 kid, and I said, I quit my job. I'm going to open an academy. And she said, let's do it. That's so funny that we have the same age, too. That's crazy.
Yeah. She was very supportive as well,
You have to be. You have to be, right?
Well, now I'm here, teaching jiu-jitsu, competing, try to, make a positive impact on people's life. And, that's all it's about. We're here to serve.
We get to serve, man. You said so great. So now here you are. You went out on a leap, right? You left you're going to leave your career. You're opening a full-time academy. So talk to me about how that experience went, and then what, from there you made a pretty big move to Colorado. So tell the audience, let us know, how that went, and what were some of the ups and the downs.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing the first place that I came to the United States was California. So I lived in Los Angeles for 6 years, six and a little bit, almost, about 6 years, right? So I had a school there. But my parents are getting older, right? I had two schools. I was, teacher Paragon, and also had Hollywood BJJ. There was my school as well. And so my parents are getting older, right? So two times my dad has an accident in Brazil, like fell from the place, he broke his femur. So flying from Los Angeles to Brazil it takes too long, right? Because if I was informed on Monday morning, right, it's a 6-hour different time zone. So I have to fly to East Coast, then fly to Brazil. But by the time I fly to East Coast, I already missed the flight to go to Brazil. So I have to fly the next day. So if something happened on Monday, I was informed that happened on Monday, I only could be there like on Wednesday.
Wednesday. Oh.
So honestly, I mean, my help was not needed after 2 days. My help was needed on that day or right after, right? So there was a kind of, there's not one reason alone. I had a guy that was coming from Dubai that wanted to, live in California and teach for me. I said, man, I don't have a job for you, but if you want to buy the school, that's a good time. And so, oh, let's do that. Okay. So I said, you know what? Let's go to Florida, right? So we moved to Miami, right? Because I just want to have like one flight, closer.
Make it easy,
right?
And, yeah.
So then we moved to Miami. It was an amazing time, man. Miami is a great place to live as well, as much as Los Angeles. I live a little north of Los Angeles, a little suburbs north, like Thousand Oaks, a little north, as a border of Los Angeles and Ventura County. Then I moved to Miami. We had a school there for 6 years as well, nice. Right? And again, like I always had a calling here for Colorado, right? I compete here a couple times. I have a couple of super fights here. As I told you, like as you grew up in the nature, right? Climbing trees and riding bikes and open spaces, outdoor all the time. So Colorado could provide this to my kids, right? My daughters run the bike to the school. My daughter goes to the park by herself, and she's 11 years old, right? Today, and she just go do things by herself. So I felt about like the quality of life, right? And I have students they were here already. They kind of asking, for me to kind of support them. Right. In the way to kind of be, closer to them, because some move from different places and, establish in Colorado. It's like, man, Professor, this is an amazing place. You're going to love it here. And I do. I think it was a, great move. I'm very thankful for, the time that I was in Los Angeles, such amazing people that I met, amazing students, amazing friends, same in Miami. Man, there was a blessing, great time. But right now, I'm the Colorado journey right now. Yes, right. And I made a promise to my wife and to my daughters that we're gonna stay here for a long period of time.
Long time, man. What an amazing journey to get out west. So here you are living your dream, helping hundreds, if not thousands, of students. Right? Live their best life. Your students call you out to Colorado, but something happened as we get a little older. We slowed down a little bit. And what did you find yourself as you're trying to compete and teach? What started happening?
Yeah, well, I was raised through Castro and Gracie lineage, right? So this very competitive. We always, and I was inspired because all my professors, compete. All of them for. Yeah. And even though, like, when they become masters, they're still competing, and that was inspired. So that was part of the culture. I can say that well, I love to compete, right? And more than love to compete, I love the process, right? And the good thing that, like in the master division, you still can do it with people. It's fair, right? With people your age, strong as, the same, probably the same injuries, the same struggles that you have with family, work, and, have a life commitments. Different for the kids, because some of the kids are like in the mid-20s, your parents are supporting you, you don't have a lot of responsibility, so it's not fair, to compare a 40-year-old to a 30-year-old, right? Even though the technique could be, similar, the stamina, the reflex, the endurance, they're different, right? You can't deny that,
Yes.
right? So I was competing, with adults until I was 42. So 42 years old, that's when I felt that was like, oh man, I need to stop. At 40 years old, I was competing Metamortis, ABI, super fights. When I made a decision, I was competing against a guy. I was in Los Angeles at the time. That was 2017. I was 42. Yeah, I was 42, almost 43. And then they put a card, like a very nice card, in Burbank, right? And I talked to the organizer, Seth Daniels, and I told him, man, I want to be part of this card. And I said, Rodrigo, we try. Like there was, some guys in the division that it didn't work out. Mm-hmm. The only guy that I have is this guy here. And I said, how much he weighed? He said 185. I mean, so I forgot to ask his name, his age, right, and what he does for a living. I found out this guy's an MMA fighter, has like 17 matches, 16 wins, and 15 on the first round, and he was 26 years old.
You were so excited, right? So excited, and you did what you would tell your students not to do, and you said, "I'll take it."
I take it. Well, because I train with those guys in class, right? But the guys are kind of high level guy. He got like a couple of years ago, he submitted Lovato in a guillotine in PanAm no-gi, right? But I could last him there was like a submission only. Uh-huh. Right, so I was able to handle myself until the last minute, right? He passed my guard a couple times, I think I swept him once, but I think he passed my guard, once, mounted me, I put again. There was he was dominant, but it was not like a
sure,
a whip. So that was good. But at the time I say, I came home. I have about 80 students come and support me on that event, like watching. After that, I say, you know what, man, I just going to do my division now, right? So I'm going to fight on my division, which is kind of give up a little bit as well. So I give them, 5 years, 5 years younger, I still can do it. But more than that, it's just not fair, right? I don't think it's, if you want to train, train everyone. But if you go to a competition, I think it's have like a little more, fair scenario, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
So this sort of happened. So I started competing more in my division, right? But and people ask me nowadays, like, how much you train? Man, I train hard 2 times a week, sometimes 3. That's what I do. That's what I need for my body. But I lift, I swim, I ride a bike, but I have to respect my body, right? So I want to do jiu-jitsu until I'm like 80 years old, right? Yeah. That's what I do. Oh, you got to do professional? No, man. I want to come in here, put my gi, stretch, do some rolls, based on my ability. But I want to be 2 things: healthy physically and mentally, right? So that's why, I do my yoga, I, ride my bike, I swim, I go to the gym and I lift, 3 times a week. Oh, to get stronger, no, I just want to be injury-free, right? So I never had, a huge injury. I never had surgeries for that. I have like my knee pop once in a competition that I hold too much, a knee bar, a toe hold. Someone did me a toe hold. I should tap early, but just like kind of minor that, kept me out of the match for a week, 10 days, mainly. But last Worlds, I compete last Worlds. I have 4 matches. I, no even, advantage score. On the semifinal, I tried to do a takedown, and I pull, like the guy put the weights a different way, my knee popped. My knee kind of fell off the place. I didn't know how I feel, but it was was the most painful situation that I had in a competition. I was crying on the mat, like 5 minutes, like the paramedics came, put my knee back in place. They kind of said, well, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't continue. And I said, but can you move? I said, yeah, I can move, right? But I don't feel like I'm strong enough. And I said, yes, you wanna continue? And I looked to my students on the side, and I said, man, they're counting me. I mean, I'm injured. It's okay to stop. But when I look at that, I say, man, it's a semifinal. I can do it, right? So I came back. I did it. I ended up like sweeping, with a butterfly.
Yeah.
Oh, I kept going. I swept a mount, and I didn't have a, advantage score. That was in the semifinal. So then, I was limping back to the final, and then I said, no, let's do it. And I said, no, you need time to rest. No, let's do it, because if it gets cold,
you're done.
I won't be able to do it, right?
Yep.
So put ice, and I said, man, and it was funny because now it just brought my memory here. And there, some people say, man, you're done. You don't have to do more. And then my old coach said, Rodrigo, it's a final. Just do it. Just go there and show up. So I did it. And of course, I couldn't finish the match because, the guy put a De La Riva. My knee was all messed up. So a few weeks later, or like a month later, I would say like 4 to 8 weeks later, I was invited to a seminar in Louisiana, Professor Danny. And it was me and Draculino, the two guys we teach a course like together, right? So I taught right before him, right? We are the two main guys there.
I remember when he told me you had the seminar. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a great time, and then I met Kevin, Kevin Lucas, the owner of New Hope, and it was like watching that. I was like, man, this guy has has a solution for my problem, because I recently moved to Colorado. Because I moved last summer. So I went to a doctor, and the doctor told me, yeah, you might need to go to surgery because you have a tear on the ligament. So you might go for surgery. And I said, okay, I don't mind. I never do surgery, and I know it's part of the sport. That's something that I might have to do like down the road. So yeah, I'm ready to do now. So what's the recovery? Oh, it can be between 6 to 10 months. I say,
huh?
What? 6 to 10 months?
Yeah.
I'm starting a new life here, a new business. I need to
a new academy, right? You just moved. You can't be out of work 6 to 10 months.
I can't.
No.
So, and then there was like a week or 2 weeks before I met Kevin. And then when I saw the presentation about New Hope, and I talked to my friend Bruno Bastos, he's a good friend of mine. I mean, we talk like 6 months before about, because we always talk about, aging well, right? So Bruno has some other restrictions of stuff, and he tried, we have the same nutritionist for one time. We share, hey, I've seen this doctor, do you see this? We share articles, scientific articles about, injuries and recovering and longevity. So, and I told, yeah, because I'm doing this treatment. It was right in the beginning of treatment. Yeah, I feel great. I couldn't do a dip, deep push-up.
Yep.
Because the arthrosis and he has in his shoulders. And I said, now with these guys, I'm able to do that. And I said, interesting.
I remember when he did that on Instagram, he was doing the dips again. He was so excited. Yeah. And Bruno's not a small competitor, right?
No.
Me and him joke. He goes, Sparks, I have man-sized jiu-jitsu. When I met him 15 years ago. But then he started doing dips again. Like, it was amazing. So now you meet Kevin at a seminar, and you hear about New Hope Regeneration has stem cell therapy, and now did you think just maybe I might not have to do surgery? Did that pop in your head?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, again, as I told you, I'm not afraid about surgery, but I said, well, I would try different things before I take the route, right? And then I said, yeah, and I was not only fascinated about the science, but also the story behind it, right? So the why, right? So why he's doing that. And I was like, man, I should give it a try. So we ended up like having this conversation, and I said, I came home and I told my wife, and I said, listen, there's something I want to do it. I called a couple of my friends, doctors, and I said, well, I mean, worth a try, right? Why not? Yeah, surgery is always there, but if you do that, maybe help. So I did it. I was, there was a great service. It was an easy flight to Spokane because we have different options in terms of, Vegas, Dallas, Spokane, Tampa. I'm not sure if they have more this time, but that time there was the options. And I said, you know what, to just go Spokane is an easy flight, fly in, fly out. So easy. I remember like I flew out like one day, like 5 p.m. I got to the hotel about 9. Next day I have an appointment. I think it was 9 a.m. I flew back at 11. Like 3 p.m. at home, like less than 24 hours. I don't remember. That was funny because I check in. I didn't even board for my flight. I received a check-in alert for the next day.
With the next flight, right?
Yeah, for the next day.
And you said something that was important, like the why. Like, New Hope has a heart for healing, especially martial arts instructors, right? And Kevin's story, and those that don't know it, check it out on Inside the Fight. But Professor got to hear it firsthand. He wants to help keep gentlemen like you, because we talked about your background as a child, that culture, right? And imagine you not being able to be there for your students for 6 to 10 months. What happens to the culture? That's his heart. That's our heart. And now, so you do the therapy, and did you have to have surgery?
No. Well, just figured out that the predictions that I got my knee hurt September, right?
Okay.
And they said, well, I need to go to surgery and things like that. So I think I went in November. In January, I was competing in the Europeans, and I won the Europeans.
So you did therapy in November, and then January you go to the Europeans, and now you just got back from the PanAms, and I witnessed firsthand you sweep and sweep and sweep again and get to the top, and left with some medals. So congratulations. How did you feel out at the Pans?
Oh, I feel great. There's a competition that I love it. I love the Pans. I think it's like the second, actually the third. Now is the third biggest tournament, right? First the Worlds, and then Brasileiros. I think it's more competitive because a lot of guys that cannot travel, a lot of Brazilians. So the first shelf is the same on everyone, right? So this we call the first shelf, right? The first 8 guys, they pretty much gonna be like on the podium, right? But the second shelf in Brazil, it's way stronger than other events because a lot of Brazilians they can't afford to come to US or.
Makes sense, right? So they're back there, right? So it's real important that we go there as well to support those events and then see all the competition. That's a great point.
That's where I'm going next month. I'm going to compete at Brasileiros next month as well. Go to São Paulo.
So Europeans, Pans. Now you're going back to Brazil. Do you see yourself slowing down anytime soon, or is this the new Professor? Is he back on the runway? Because I know your wife's going to watch this, so I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, no, we have this conversation a lot of times. I enjoy the process and the competition. I enjoy it. Yeah. I got nervous on the day before. I got nervous. I got my own routine, but I enjoy the process because this is what I tell my students. The competition is just like a little, I would say like you keep the flame on for training, right? Because if you need to set goals, right? So I have a competition in 3 weeks, right? I'm not gonna have a beer tonight. It's Friday, right? I'm gonna make sure after my training, we have a black belt training here on Fridays at 4 p.m. We've got a bunch of friends that come together, collectively collaborate for the growth of each other. And of course, we spar in the end. And then it's okay, 5:30, I will teach a class, 6:30, I'm home, right? So, well, I could, do something else. No, I'm gonna be focused because I wanna, compete and represent well. What I'm doing that, because this is what I tell students as well. Competitions is just like a reaffirmation of your commitment to the art, right? Because, for example, let's assume that we have a competition schedule for the next 2 weeks or 2 months, right? We settled this agreement that we're going to compete. So what's happening right after that? I'm going to start training more, right? I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to be careful, watching my nutrition, right? I'm going to work on my techniques, right? So with the next 2 months, what I'm doing, I make my jiu-jitsu better. If I go down in the day, got, submit first round, armbar right away, what's going to happen? Do you see how much I grow my jiu-jitsu in the 2 months?
Yes, sir. And I'm so glad you said that, because you said it, the approach. You said you love the process, because I believe, like you, when I have a competition on the books, my approach to training is completely different than I'm just going to class, right?
Yeah.
It has to be, right? So, thank you for pointing that out. And that's, I think, what makes your jiu-jitsu, your methodology so great, because of the approach.
Yeah, so that's what I see. Like when training for a competition is like building a cake, right? So what are you gonna put? You're gonna put all the ingredients together, right? So meaning you're gonna put physical, nutrition, everything on top of that, on that thing. It's the same thing. You're gonna train better. You're gonna, eat better. You're gonna try to sleep better. You're gonna invest more time. You're gonna buy online, instructionals so you can get better. So the technique, the competition itself, the cake is there. It's ready to serve. It's on the table. This competition is just the cherry on the cake, the cherry on top. Boom, right there. It's a medal. You can do it, not do it.
I love it. Well, Professor, God, I am so happy for you. Number one, congratulations. I'm so glad that you're training, that you're competing, and you're smiling. That's really what matters, right? You seem so happy, and I know your students are so lucky to have you. Tell us, if people are in the area, where can they find you if they travel in? Tell us where your gym's at.
Yeah, we are in South Denver, right? I have 2 schools here. It's 6 Blades South Denver in Littleton, right? You just find us on Instagram, 6 Blades South Denver, or the website 6bladesdenver.com, right?
And we have also, love it.
We also have a location in downtown, like right out south downtown, very nice location. So whatever you in Denver, to visit for work, of holidays, or hit the mountains, come one day earlier, come and check it out. We love visitors. Like we like to share, like the school is always open for everyone, a good attitude. They want to learn and share and want to have fun on the mats.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. We could keep talking for hours, but if you guys want to learn more, make sure you follow Professor on Instagram. Definitely stop into his academy. We are so happy that you are healing, that you're happy, and more importantly, that you're helping others. So thank you for being a part of Team New Hope Regeneration's family. We can't wait to see what you do the rest of this year. I'm sure we're going to see more medals in your future. So thank you so much, Professor, for being here. Obrigado.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything that you guys do, for the Jiu-Jitsu community, and for the generation to keep us, healthy, and able to kind of keep, more time on the mat. I truly appreciate that.
That's it. More time on the mats, guys, because hope lives here. If you guys like this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe this episode, share this journey, the history that you just learned today. Click that share button to all your friends. Let them know. And we want to see you next time on the New Hope Regeneration podcast, where hope lives here.
If you enjoyed the show, visit newhoperegeneration.com. And be sure to tune in to the next episode to learn more about regenerative therapy.